I was writing with a purpose, and it wasn't just, oh, what's the, most hardcore, the sweetest way I can say these things. It was, there's a purpose behind it. There's something we want to say, and, say it in the best way possible. And I just think it's so much easier to write when you're writing for a purpose that's bigger than the song itself than to just be writing for the song itself.
From back before I was in the band, just listening to them, even with the EP, I always really liked Mike's lyrics because they seemed very mature, and he seems to avoid cliches in lyrics that can sometimes ruin a good song when you hear a line that so many other bands have used, and it just draws away from the creativity of it.
On this, Mike just went above and beyond with his lyrics, using, I guess, almost real life experiences, that he's seen before. He wrote some really killer lyrics.
Mike uses so many literary references that I think it's interesting for people to listen to if they recognize them. It's another cool element that is brought into the band.
There's something about Mike's lyrics that are just so real and so down to earth that it can't help but touch home to someone.
Mike wrote a majority of the lyrics, and the one thing that he did a really nice job was stepping up his game as far as screaming vocals were concerned.
His scream has developed so much since our last EP that it's almost unrecognizable.
Wasn't necessarily something intentional, which was so weird about it. And I don't think we really noticed it until we were, recording it and able to, hear it without all the clutter of, a live set, was that, it was just so much more aggressive and scary in a way, and just a lot more passion into it.
With Mike on this record, he really taught himself to articulate his screams a lot more. Throughout the entire record, you can most of the time understand what he's saying.
I think one of the biggest things that we stressed on this album vocally was clarity, which is something that I learned from screamers that I respect, like Ed Butcher from I Killed the Prom Queen and Eternal Lord, or Carl Schubach from Misery Signals. And you can always understand everything that they're saying. They enunciate and they pronounce everything with such clarity that there's never a doubt about what they're saying, even though they're screaming with intensity and aggression and, at the top of their lungs.
It's nice to have 3 members in a band that all do vocals, whether it be singing or screaming.
For instance, I sing, Mike sings, and he's the lead singer, and he sings fantastically.
So many times you'll listen to an album, and about halfway through of hearing that same vocal style from the frontman, you'll be sick of it because they kind of seem like a one-trick pony where there's only so much that one person can do. So when you have 3 different voices acting out throughout the whole album and different feeling parts, it makes it much more listenable.
Dan, not only is he a great guitar player, but he is an amazing singer. And he's going to have most of the hooks you hear on the album.
On the record, for my vocal parts, I normally wound up with what I like to call the leftover scraps, which always seemed to me the parts that were too high for Mike or Evan to hit. So they would say, hey, Dan, why don't you sing this because you can go higher. So sometimes by default I get those parts. But other times Mike would very thoughtfully write parts and melodies that he specifically thought would be just for me to sing.
In My Dark Passenger at the very end, while he does have his fair share of high aggressive vocal parts, there's this part where it gets kind of bluesy and, earthy sound at the end, very organic. And we were able to write this vocal part where it's just Dan and I trading back, singing lines and then singing harmonies together, which was something we hadn't really done before. And there's just something about it that was just very exciting.
It was also a time where we got to do some things vocally for myself that I hadn't done before, as far as just a different style or a different approach to singing a section. I also have 1 screaming track on the entire record.
Dan King has also wanted to contribute so much more to the album. For instance, on The Poor Servant of a Poor Master, he has lent us some screaming tracks on them, which you can hear apart from myself and Mike's parts.
That's it, just 1.
It was very beneficial to us when, writing all aspects of this album, that we weren't just writing cool songs just to write cool songs. We were writing cool songs because they would be the best vessels for messages that we were trying to get across on the album.
A few days after Mike sent me the title for the record, I was sketching and this line popped into my head and I wrote it down before I forgot it. That line is, "Blood is black as the hearts we carry." It just didn't leave me alone for the next couple weeks.
The artwork for the album, we wanted it to not just be something that looked cool or that catches your eye, but we wanted it to be something that fully encompassed the theme and the message of the album.
The next weekend I was watching Dexter and I just had this image of somebody standing there holding their chest with just black oozing everywhere. So I wanted to find a way to tie directly into the title. But since merit is kind of it's an immaterial term, I wanted to A, represent measuring that, and B, find a way to represent merit.
He called me up one day and he said, what do you think about having a guy holding a scale with his heart literally on the scale, but on the other side there's nothing?
And keeping the scales level to say that this heart, this signifier for merit, it's worth nothing.
And he did it in this really cool digital style with his little tablet and stylus pen thing.
So initially we wanted to go with a photo-based layout, but the props didn't work out, so we're going with a digital painting.
I think the interior of the album layout is probably my favorite because on the pages we have it looking as if you're looking down at like a ledger or like a book of records.
The ledger connects with, again, the idea of recording merit, this thing you can't weigh or measure, and we wanted to have it, but also have it in a way destroying itself. So we're putting the ledger on this pedestal and having the pages being torn out and blown around.
On that, handwritten, is the lyrics to all the songs in the album, which, is not only cool, but it makes a lot of sense because a lot of these songs on the album, the lyrics are introspective, are, looking at my faults or other people's faults or, faults of just us as a society. And I think it makes a lot of sense to, have your faults written down, literally handwritten down as lyrics, on a book of records or a ledger where, everything is being recorded. And I just thought it was really cool how, that worked out, being actually making sense while looking cool and being interesting to the eye.
I feel that when you think of the phrase "we are all without merit," it kind of speaks for the hypocrisy of the world.
Who is anyone to judge anyone else for what they're doing? Because you really have to look at yourself and see all the faults within yourself before you can even look at anyone else's faults.
Everyone has their own vices that they're struggling with. Everyone has things they could change about themselves.
It tells me myself that I should not be so judgmental of other people. And, I hope most of the lyrics on this record, really inspire people to, do better things in life and just become a better person.
Everybody's imperfect, and we should all learn to accept each other's imperfections rather than trying to raise ourselves upon a pedestal by pointing out the flaws of others.
So I think that's pretty much what the entire album, every song in some way relates to that theme of just looking at yourself, recognizing how horrible you really are, as horrible as that sounds, and then, using that to realize that who are you to look at anyone else and call them out on anything that they're doing. And really, that's the negative way of looking at it, but more positively, when you flip it around, it's to look at everyone and to receive everyone with love, because you know that they're all struggling with sin and struggling with other things just as much as you are. And I think that's the biggest thing with this album, is that we don't want to just put out good songs and songs that kids are going to be singing along to. We wanted to put out something that was literally going to influence people in their lives.